Hearing none, policy IKA, parental assistance with instruction, would replace current policy 6.11. This policy is quite similar to our current policy, and there were no proposed changes from first reading. Any questions on policy IKA? All right, policy IGBB, programs for gifted students, would replace former policy or current policy 6.24. This is quite, it is very consistent with our previous policy, and the only change was noted on line 8, moving from citizens to members of the public, which is a change that the board had asked that we make to all policies that use the word citizens going forward. Any questions on that change or anything on IGBB? All right, that's it for second reading.
Great, thank you, Ms. Benson. Would see, I'm waiting for Ms. Russell to return. I would seek a motion to approve adoption, second reading adoption of these policies.
Madam Chair, I move that the school board approve second reading and adoption of policies IGAK, alternatives to animal dissection, IKA, parental assistance with instruction, and IGBB, programs for gifted students as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Webb. We have enough of us. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstained? All right. Next is 8.06, approval of first reading of policies. Ms. Benson?
Great. We have two policies for first reading tonight. Both of them would be replacing, they would be in the school board section of the policies, so the B letters, and would replace two of our bylaws. Normally, I include in red any proposed changes from the VSBA model policy. This time, because our current bylaws were very similar to the model policies from the VSBA, I included in red any changes from our current policy that are in the VSBA model policies. You'll note there are a few of those in section A, line 1. In item 7, it broke out consultation with legal counsel for closed meetings into two separate portions. And then there were a few changes in wording in paragraphs 10, 12, 13, and 14. There's also the addition of paragraphs C and D, and those are actually lines that are directly taken from the policy, the next policy that's presented for first reading, the bylaw 2.27. So even though there's a fair amount of red text in here and some strike-throughs, it's very similar. The model policy BDC on closed meetings is quite similar to the current bylaw 2.26. I do want to note that I spoke briefly with Marty, Ms. Goodell, our clerk, about this. So upon the board, if the board does adopt this version of the policies for closed meetings and certification of closed meetings, there will be a few tweaks that we need to make to what we post on board docs going forward on reading into closed meetings and what the exceptions are for FOIA under closed meetings, but it's not going to be a major change in it's certainly not a change in what we do it as a practice, and it's a minor tweak in a few words. Any questions on policy BDC, closed meetings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about records versus information. I'm sure there's an explanation as to why they were swapped out, sometimes one for the other and sometimes vice versa.
I noticed that there was a change from, let's see, it was from recommendations to, from information to records. I think that is consistent, well, in paragraph 14, it says consideration of information and concerning such records. So I don't know if that's a change in the Virginia code language or if that was something that Elizabeth Ewing thought would make more sense. I can follow up with her and report back on that at second reading if you'd like, but I'm not sure why that change was made, because it does seem like they're used interchangeably in at least.
It'd be interesting, it seems information is broader than records, but beyond that, I don't know.
And I don't know if that was an
that's
intentional
driving.
change based on concerns that have been raised or cases that were brought to her attention, so I can find out and let you know.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
You better hurry. I'm timing out.
I will raise that in the January meeting when these come up for a second reading, but I'd be happy
I'll be
to
watching
forward that along
online
to you.
if the streaming works.
Okay. Any other questions on BDC closed meetings? I'm sad thinking that this is the last time that you'll be working on policies, Mr. Castillo. The final policy for first reading tonight is BDCA, calling and certification of closed meetings. And this also, I included in red those minor changes from our current bylaw 2.27. The other thing I wanted to note is that what has been crossed out or stricken through at lines 18 to 23, and then again on the back, on page 2 at lines 50 to 52, are reflected in model policy BDC. So while it's removed from the calling and certification of closed meetings, that language is including in the closed meeting section on BDC. Any questions or comments on model policy BDCA?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll go out in a blaze of glory here and say, I think line 5 was just fine as it is, and it's actually moving backwards to say, no closed meetings are held. I think what it's saying is, thou shalt not hold closed meetings until you do these things. And that's the way you do it. You say, no closed meetings shall be held.
I think it can go to back to
So,
that as well. Any objections from other members of the board? Okay.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I would seek a motion to approve first reading of the policies.
Madam Chair, I move that the school board approve first reading for the following policies. Policy BDC, closed meeting, and BDCA, calling and certification of closed meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Castillo. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed or abstained? That closes our business items tonight, and now we have our future agenda items. Does anyone have any items for a future agenda? Mr. Castillo? Just kidding.
I got a long list, long list.
Justin and I have several things we'd like to add to your agendas going forward. They will not be here to discuss. Any other agenda items? Ms. Russell? Yep.
Yeah, so I'm sure that it's going to come up at some future addenda, but just to make sure that we are keeping in sight the diversity report that Dr. Williams presented, and that we're having, I guess, preferably a work session on that in the near future.
Thank you for asking that question. We've been having some internal discussions about how best to sort of process the information that's in it. So as we continue to process, particularly with our division-wide equity team, and then take it out to the equity teams at the schools, we will certainly bring back our conversations to the school board at a future date.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Webb?
And just echoing the same thing, that is one of the big topics for me for next year, is us working on what's out there within that was made in that presentation, and how to take the parts of it, but then take it to the next level of making sure that we address some of those issues that are out there.
Great. We will add that. Next up is 10.01, our superintendent's report.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. Last night, the City Council passed some budget guidance and in the line they put 3.1%, which is not a surprise, I don't think, considering the work session that we had the week previous. But as the conversation continued to evolve, one of the things that did come up was if there was more organic growth, that we would continue to share that revenue. So, for example, if it goes up to 3.3, that would be the new budget guidance. So we will continue to watch it, but it gives us a good starting point to begin looking at our budget and talk about our budget priorities moving forward. As you all know, and Chair Gill and Mr. Castillo, we will miss you in January for the first budget presentation, but the superintendent's budget will be presented in January, at which time I will share sort of what the needs are for the school division. I want to just talk about the 5 schools just very quickly. First, Mount Daniel. Thursday morning will be the coding extravaganza as part of the Computer Science Education Week, which was mentioned this evening during the spotlight, and also through some of the conversations with respect to new courses. Every student at Mount Daniel is going to participate in the Hour of Code event. Students have been learning the basics of coding, and they will be working with volunteers, and this will be the 3rd year in a row that the volunteers from Amazon and our tech staff from all of the schools and George Mason High School's first robotics team will be coming down as well to work with kids on coding. So we're really excited about that big event. At Thomas Jefferson, the fourth grade annual trip to Jamestown continued in the classroom as each student created and shared elaborate dioramas as follow-up exploration for their Jamestown trip. Sounds like it was quite a lot of fun. I saw lots of pictures and some really cool dioramas. Just want to take a quick minute to recognize the incredible generosity of our students at Thomas Jefferson. In recent weeks, our students have written letters and cards to veterans and active duty troops, collected books and puzzles to donate to preschoolers, held school-wide food collection, and I continue just to be so impressed with how our TJ students really reach out to the community and support those in need. At Henderson, it was Give Day, and it was a huge, smashing success as always. I hope you've seen some of the pictures that have been out on the website and on Twitter. All the students in their red hairnets. Every student in the school participated, packing food, and they packed 33,000 meals to help rise against hunger. And they discovered how great it is to do something good. And I think that was the coolest thing about some of those pictures, is you saw them just really excited. George Mason, the Mason First, here's a Mason First. George Mason High School theater students are state champions, and we want to congratulate the troupe on their VHSL One Act Theater Competition win. It's a huge deal in the theater world to win that VHSL One Act, and it'll be fun to hang their flag in the new high school, celebrating their great work. Our musicians have been out in the county, out and about in the community. In addition to the Winter Band concert Tuesday and tomorrow's chorus concert, they've been spotted at the City Tree Lighting event, the Community Center Craft Fair, Tree Fest, JV's Club, and Sunday the chorus will have a role in the Washington Sinfonetta Holiday Concert at the Falls Church Episcopal Church. Winter sports have begun with Scholastic Bowl, basketball, swim, and wrestling and competitions throughout the month. Also want to congratulate Sean Northrup and the theater students and choir students on an excellent musical chorus line this year. After talking with Mr. Northrup, he was really excited. The evening of the Cappies event, they did have an understudy, and the Cappies crew met with Mr. Northrup afterwards and said, we can't believe that was an understudy. They were really great too. So good night every night. And then at Jesse Thackeray, if you ever need a breath of excitement and fresh air, go to Jesse Thackeray and walk the halls. Our students there are engaged in a lot of fun and play and doing the things that our preschoolers do to get ready for pre-K. One last thing is if you haven't downloaded the new FCCPS app, we would ask you to do that. That is going to be one of our main ways of communicating. So we have replaced the old app. It is now off the market. The new one's on the market. And it's an excellent product that really reflects, I think, in many ways, sort of who we are. We are trying to tell stories through that app. And I want to just congratulate and celebrate John Brett for his work pulling that all together as he was also transitioning to the new website. So it takes about 30 seconds to load that up. And then the last thing I'll say, even though I just said that was the last thing I'll say, the last thing I really will say is it's going to be tough, but we have our school board meeting tonight and our first 4 a.m. snow call tomorrow morning of the season. So just a reminder to update your Twitter account, update your app, update your phone and computer systems and TVs to make sure that you're paying attention, because if there is a delay or a closure, we'll have that information out as early as 5 a.m., but no later than 5:15 a.m. And we are anticipating some snow tomorrow. It's hard to tell exactly how much we're going to get, or whether it's going to stick. And so we will have discussions about it tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. So you can think about us as you're dreaming of a white holiday. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noonan. Next is our 11.01, our board and student liaison comments, and I will start with Mr. Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last event, it'll be the Daycare Advisory Board meeting, which I believe they have a tradition. Yes, Liberty Barbecue this year. They always have a good end of year event. So looking forward to that. I was at the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting, and they're doing a lot of good work and continue to be working with us on the school project. And I was just very pleased about our discussion about the calendar today, and that's all I've got for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. unfortunately, I had to miss the Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee meeting last week because of the band concert. But they did have a really good discussion, partially about standards-based grading, and I think they're going to spend a little bit more time